You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Welcome to yet again another episode of the Red Moon Podcast, live every single Tuesday night, right here on all your favorite social media networks at 9 p.m. Eastern, and you can catch the audio version on your favorite podcast catcher app on Thursdays, not Tuesdays, tonight's Tuesday, on Thursdays at midnight. That's right, as soon as the clock strikes midnight, get our show. Download it right away for your drive into work on Friday. Yeah! Alrighty, guys. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host, Sean Sebastian. And
I know you want me to do it.
I always do.
But I'm not going to.
You always refuse.
I refuse, just to spite you.
I'm telling you, Keith, you only said it, I think, once in the last, probably 6 months.
I don't know.
Yeah. Nobody knows who you are.
Nobody knows me.
He doesn't want anybody to know who he is.
See,
actually,
that way when they dig these videos up in my future career, they won't have anything they can blackmail me
It's
against.
actually a lie. They do know you. You know why?
Like, that's you in that video. No, it's not.
Yeah,
Because I control.
No.
Did I say my name?
Yeah.
I control the
It's
font.
like, that's just the evil me.
I control
AI.
the lower thirds, and it says your name right
says
now
your name.
on your face.
Yeah.
Again, I never said it.
He never said it. Though.
It's
He
like they
didn't
put
confirm
that
it.
on there. Like, that's my evil twin, and they're giving him my name.
It's AI generated.
Then they'll go watch this video. Like, you created this
Dude,
alibi on the show. No, I didn't.
That was another video I need to send you all. It was crazy. And it couldn't have been that long ago, but it was how AI is changing. I mean, we already know how it's changing the landscape of fabric and time. But no, it was it took a clip out of the movie Fall, which we actually reviewed here on the show last year or the year before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was a scene, and it showed how it scanned the face of this girl, like she was breaking down on top of the tower or whatever, and it manipulated. It was for like the rated R version, which was uncut, the PG-13 version, and they just changed how her mouth moved to the word freaking, and then even to Japanese dialogue and other dubs. And I'm like, that's literally how they're going to be as sophisticated as making like the entire movie now.
Yeah, that's
they will
crazy.
go through and scan faces and change the way your lips move based on AI for different dubbings.
And I mean, it's scary. Some of that actually, though, for like
It's creative.
things
That's a
like
way
that,
to do it.
Yeah, for things like
Use
that,
it.
I'm actually. It's like, okay, that's awesome, because then you could watch a dub of a movie. Because that's why I don't watch dubs. I hate that their mouths don't match what they're saying.
Right.
I just rather watch the original language in subtitles. So I'm like, that's a way to use AI that I don't disagree with entirely. But it is scary to think that it could. The fact that it could do that, like, what type of malicious ways can it be used?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Oh, well, and again, kind of going back to what we were just joking about, it's like, well, Keith was here, but was he?
Was I?
Was he
Nobody
here?
knows. Well, you have the whole thing on social media of people using AI to create nudes of celebrities. I mean, Taylor Swift being the biggest one that happened during the Super Bowl.
That one was
because-
actually funny because they also made her fat.
Well, they had other. They didn't only have nudes. They did have some fun. Like the one of her in Trump's lap was funny too. But
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that one was. Yeah.
I'm sure
that was
they
when the
didn't
lawsuits came out.
Yeah, yeah.
That was when she was getting pissed.
But yeah, it is scary to think it's like all they need is just one photo of you online, and then you just run it through an AI generator, and
It's already there, too.
gotcha. Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
If you post it, it belongs to somebody else.
It belongs to the world now.
And that's kind of where the odd gray area. I mean, that's been the gray area we've been in for the last 2 decades. I mean, the moment you do post it online, okay, you could sit here and say it's your property, but really, I mean, once it spreads like wildfire on social media,
When you click I agree, you're signing everything away.
right?
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, that was just one cool thing. I thought, oh yeah, this is a unique way to utilize this technology in a productive manner versus like having to redo a bunch of reshoots or even again.
Yeah.
But it was even odd because you would think it would look very unnatural, or even maybe change the way the emotion of the face is delivered because of it changing so much. Definitely it's in its infancy, But for the most part, if they hadn't told you, you'd be watching thinking, now maybe two, I was going to say it was just one specific scene that the camera was relatively still. Now, granted, you blow that up to a bunch of different cutting back and forth. It's a lot of time. It's going to be a lot of processing time to do a whole movie.
Right, but AI can do that and manpower doesn't have to.
True. It just depends on your budget and your timeline of when you want to get the film out.
I was just from a parental perspective, I'm thinking there's so many movies that I would love to sit down and watch with my kids, but I don't because of language in the films. And I'm like, why can't there be a made-for-TV version of some of these other films so that we could sit down and watch? That'd be great if I could select, instead of selecting I want the Spanish audio, it's like I want the PG-13.
Yeah,
right.
I want the PG.
And they sort of have that with like things like VidAngel.
But
VidAngel though is
it mostly just cuts.
Yes,
and in some, I mean, try watching Pulp Fiction with VidAngel.
Well,
just like
there's certain movies
I know
that you're just like,
I know
you're not getting a PG-13 out of this.
Yeah.
It's just not happening.
I think there's more than just language in Pulp Fiction that's not suitable for your kids.
True.
Well, I was so disappointed Boogie Nights was edited just completely out. It started with the opening credits and ended with the credits.
Yeah.
Like in 2 seconds. It's like, there's certain movies you're trimming out the fat. I mean, everything. Everything is fat.
Come over here and on my Bloggleboggles.
It's even worse if they made up words.
Yeah.
Honestly, that would be
That'd be
great.
hilarious.
If they could get an AI machine to
Come
just
over here and spill on my jugs. Like, I don't know what they would do. It's still nasty. That's a line from Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
Does it say
No,
that?
it says come over, do something on her something.
But it'd be funny. Like, come over here and pour some coffee in my
Pour
cup.
some sugar on me.
Yeah.
Then they get
Then
sued
Def
by
Leppard
Def
starts
Leppard.
playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would sue because they ain't doing nothing lately.
That's right.
They need every penny
And they got
can
a
get.
concert coming with like
It's
5
a
other.
tour. Yeah, it's nothing new.
No,
Oh, man.
they've been doing it for
Touring with Styx
for
and
life.
Foreigner. And
There's like 4 different bands that
You
are
know
all
what?
way past their prime.
But you know what? People pay to see them.
Yeah.
And I don't
Yeah.
blame them because they're rocking out to their classics.
I will say, Def Leppard, all of their members are still alive.
Yeah.
Is Journey still doing it?
Not, I mean, Steve Perry's dead. So.
I mean,
Well, they've had
did they have, like,
but
a
they've had
tribute
a
band?
no. They've been
Yeah.
Journey still had. They had a
they
new singer.
toured. Yeah,
They had that.
they got a new
that
singer that sounds
Asian
like him.
guy. That he
he
sounds.
is Asian.
really?
He sounds
Yeah,
just
no,
like
he's been with them for
Yeah,
years. Like
that's
they've been
true.
touring with him for a long time.
Because
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
about? I know the Eagles just had like their farewell tour. Like
They've
2 or
done
3
that.
years
They've had a
ago.
farewell tour 6 times.
Just look, hey, we're talking about how old the greats are and
Yeah.
how they're irrelevant
So
now.
one of the best concerts that I've ever watched on like MTV Unplugged
Yeah.
was the Eagles.
Oh, my
there
mom
was-
loves them.
There was a back in the day they broke up and somebody asked them like, will you all ever get back together? And what's that guy's? Don Henley said, yeah, when hell freezes over. And so when they got back together, it was the Hell Freezes Over tour.
Well, there you go.
But they did an MTV Unplugged, and it is it's fantastic.
All I'm saying is we're talking about the old greats.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
being
aren't
put
any
out to
new
pasture, but that's the thing. I mean, we're moving into the era of AI and artificialness.
Yeah.
It's like we've been there for at least a decade of just everything being artificial.
Yeah.
So the fact that you at least have these peeps
They're
who
still
are
real.
Yeah, they're
They're
standing
alive.
on what they actually did produce.
God,
and
Mick Jagger's still alive.
Yeah,
I
that's-
can't believe that.
they're gonna make a leather boot out of him one day. I mean, that's what his face looks like every time I see it. Him and who's the guitarist? I forget.
Keith Richards.
Man, he just looks.
Oh
like
yeah,
a,
Keith
he's still
Richards.
alive.
Yeah.
Man,
He does. He
he-
looks like he looks like Brian's couch that's in the shed.
Yes,
Like
And
it's just like
years
cracked
of
leather.
wear and tear.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh
A
no,
little
doubt.
bit of peeling too.
No, no doubt. Alrighty, enough with that chatter.
Yeah, that was a good opening.
Let's move on to our review of the week. The big movie on the block. It did end up, I think, taking #1 at the box office.
Yeah.
Not a great raking in of dough. It only managed to cross like the $40 million mark.
They said it made a little bit more than Afterlife did its opening weekend, but
and I don't see it trending upward from here.
no, that's what me and Sean were talking. Of course, if we're talking about Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire, Afterlife, they said obviously like it did a little bit less its opening weekend, but also was one of the first movies after the pandemic when people weren't fully going back to theaters
True.
yet.
I forgot that was like two years ago.
2021.
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
So
it does not feel like it was that long
with
ago.
Frozen Empire now, it's made a little bit more its opening weekend than Afterlife did, but Afterlife trended upward, whereas, like you just said, and you're about to hear in the review, I don't think this one's going to trend upward.
Well, let's get into our actual real thoughts on the movie, because I think this is one where we all kind of walked out and had the same feeling.
Yeah.
So here is our official review of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Bustin' makes me feel good. Well, it used to anyway. That's right, the follow-up to Ghostbusters Afterlife, the loving ode to Ivan Reitman and the late Harold Ramis from Jason Reitman, is here. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, which is dedicated to the now late Ivan Reitman, promised a continuation of the series that returns to New York City and the firehouse made famous in the original movies. With director Gil Keenan, co-writer for both Afterlife and Frozen Empire, taking the reins from Jason Reitman, who also co-wrote both films, Frozen Empire sees the entire cast of Afterlife supplanted from their Oklahoma setting to New York. The Spanglers, consisting of Phoebe, Trevor, and their mom Callie, played by McKenna Grace, Finn Wolfhard, and Carrie Coon respectively, alongside one Gary Gruberson, portrayed by Paul Rudd, all now live together in the firehouse as full-fledged Ghostbusters, busting ghosts under the backing of entrepreneur and original Ghostbuster, Winston Zeddemore, played by Ernie Hudson. The family tackles the challenges of busting ghosts under the pressure of now City Mayor Walter Peck, played by the returning William Atherton, while navigating normal familial hardships as well. But when an ancient evil is accidentally unleashed, it will take new and returning Ghostbusters alike to defeat it. Alongside Hudson and Atherton's return, we are also treated to the likes of Annie Potts, Dan Aykroyd, and Bill Murray, all of whom were advertised heavily as not just returning, but having meatier roles than in Afterlife. Alongside these original cast members, we also get returning characters Podcast and Lucky, played by Logan Kim and Celeste O'Connor. New characters Nadim, Dr. Wardsky, and Dr. Lars Penfield, played by Kamal Nanjiani, Patton Oswalt, and James Acaster. Newcomer Emily Allen Lind as Melody. The ever-important Slimer cameos, plus the return of the mini Stay Puffs, and the new villain, and the entire movie is packed with an overabundance of characters, each with plot lines contributing to the overall story. Much of the new franchise is an idea of passing the torch to a new generation, but we never even get to see the original Ghostbusters mentoring the new generation. Dan Aykroyd's Ray spends most of his time on screen with Podcast. Winston, who is funding the research and gear, gives a lecture here or there, but never any real advice or mentoring, with his most meaningful screen time spent between himself and Aykroyd. And Murray is just there to make fans happy. Likewise, the new cast never really get moments to shine either. Rudd is as entertaining as Rudd always is, but despite attempted build-ups to him becoming a father figure, he never gets the emotional landing intended. Grace's Phoebe, the arguable lead in both ensemble films, was a standout in Afterlife and a plot device in Frozen Empire. And Nanjiani's Nadim, an integral character to the new story, is funny, but poorly intertwined into the larger plot as well, basically serving as a generic keymaster and a key part of the Deus Ex Machina resolution at the film's end. Overall, my entire opinion of Frozen Empire is of a movie doing so much, it accomplishes nothing. Each individual plot point and character could have been almost an entire film. Instead, the film bifurcates the cast, putting them into distinct groups: Podcast with Aykroyd and Oswalt, Nanjiani with Murray, Wolfhard, and O'Connor, Grace with Lind, and Rudd with Coons. Each group gets to solve a generic piece of the plot, so they can all come together at the end and triumph in the most innocuous way possible. Frozen Empire tries to juggle way too much, leaving us with a film that's tepid in how it develops its characters, plots, humor, and antagonists. There are some cool new ideas presented, but nothing is ever fleshed out. Everything happens not in a natural progression of plot, but because the story has to get to point A to point B. Framed with a similar plot structure to the original movies, Frozen Empire doesn't actually offer anything fresh, and even the callbacks and fan service feel hollow and meaningless, shoehorned into scenes just for the sake of nostalgia, but never actually serving the story. Yes, even despite these throwbacks and a plot structure that mimics the older films, Frozen Empire still manages to feel like a modern action comedy more than an actual Ghostbusters movie. It has all the pieces and all the Easter eggs, but lacks depth of the entire cast, and the lack of any subtlety has stripped the film of the charm the originals and Afterlife to an extent had. The movie is humorous in places, and many plot ideas had hopeful possibilities, but ultimately what is delivered is a milquetoast franchise sequel. Another piece of nostalgia bait that's not horrible, but painfully tepid and again uninspired. I give Ghostbusters Frozen Empire 2 out of 4 stars.
Well, there you have it. 2 out of 4 stars for, I would say, would you say it's the second in a new...
It's a reboot sequel. Like it
Yeah,
is
yeah.
fourth film, I guess,
count
total,
this as like
but
the
it is
second movie
Yeah.
in their new saga.
Yes, yeah.
Of what they were starting to
Well,
try
it's
to
like
do
the
with
prequel trilogy
Afterlife.
and the sequel
Yeah.
trilogy. It's like, yeah, they're all one
I
off,
just
but
see
you
them
know.
as like, I see it as Ghostbusters 4. Like it's the third one plays so heavily off of the first movie.
But I love that
It's
we're
I'm just like-
all.
But I don't want to call it Ghostbusters 4 because it's not worthy of that.
But we're also notice how none of us are including the 2016 version though.
Well, that
doesn't
That's
exist.
not a count.
yeah,
No.
it doesn't even play into the. Like, they intentionally made that one outside of a separate timeline. Like
True.
this has
Yeah.
no connection, and it's like, okay, good, because it's dog crap.
Yeah.
But no,
This one was better than that one. Not by a lot,
That's it.
not by a
Yeah.
lot, but
true.
it was.
It was not a lot at all because this one was just so loaded with so much crap, and it was just from start to finish. It wasn't even that it started off poorly. I mean, there were genuinely funny moments in this. There were times where I chuckled out loud, and they had funny parts. Character wise, I thought, obviously Dan Aykroyd didn't seem like himself. There was a few moments where they tried to give him like a monologue or a line that made it sound like his old self, but he just didn't seem like the nerdy, like
He didn't have
all
the childlike
invested.
wonder that
No.
Ray normally. And granted, yes, I know he's an old man now, but like when it comes to the supernatural, you still expect him to have that
And they
sense of
tried
awe.
to add that with the MacGuffin in this film.
Yes.
But it just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And same with Bill Murray. He's not used, just like Ernie Hudson's not really used other than just being the philanthroper
Yeah.
And based on the
Philanthropist that
previous
pays
film,
for
though,
it.
Ernie Hudson, to me, would have been the one who was used the most in this movie.
Yeah.
Because the third movie ends with him and his company that he's built and created basically bankrolling a new Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
And continuing to pump money into it. And it's like, but then he's not present. And then, I don't know, Bill Murray shows up at the end of the third one out of nowhere, and I felt like he did the same thing in this movie.
Yes.
It's just like, I'll take 5 minutes. That's all I want
Yeah.
on set. But yeah,
Well, and it's really a shame because that was almost all the time they had for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, even catching up with the family to set up the family dynamic of Paul Rudd's character really included here as a father figure. They spend the first part of the movie explaining that through this,
And it
ghost
never
chase.
has an emotional
No,
payoff.
it never has an emotional payoff. Then you have the whole Grace McKenna's character, Phoebe, with her ghost friend. Then which is funny because I think they were expecting that to be the most emotional gut punch.
Yeah.
Because they didn't include it in any of the trailers, and it's kind of revealed.
I think
in
they
such
wanted
a way,
to make it kind of a twist, but it wasn't.
It wasn't at all. And so that falls flat. The original cast coming back, they don't have enough time. I mean, there's the whole situation with Ernie, I think, talking to, Dan Aykroyd in the hallway.
Yeah.
yeah.
And he's sitting there saying, like, hey, go retire, be off somewhere, and, like, don't let this stress you out and get the best of you. And it's just one of these situations of...
That was the strongest emotional connection they had for the original Ghostbusters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And then, of course, even like the villain, like I feel like he was there and gone in a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
Like he wouldn't even have a build up.
Like that's one thing about
That happens in the third one too, in Afterlife too. I mean, Gozer doesn't show up until the last 10 minutes of the movie.
But the
But
entire
at least
film
with that one, I'll argue that Gozer.
Yes.
It was bad
you
as a
know of who-
fallback because
Yes.
of who it was. It was a villain you already
and
knew.
even in the original movie, Gozer doesn't appear until the end, but that presence is felt throughout the entirety of the movie. Everything that happens, especially with the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper, all of it is this build up to this great evil that they keep talking about. And I feel like you don't have the same build up in this one. Yeah, you have the beginning and you have like this the artifact that they're like, oh, there's a great evil in there, but it never feels like this detrimental threat the way Gozer does in the original, or even Vigo in the second one, is campy as that villain kind of is.
Yeah, it
like
is.
But I still love
it's
it.
Still good.
Yes, it's like he's campy, but at the same
just
time,
brought him back.
Yeah.
Just rehash all of them. Yeah.
I honestly was expecting to have like some kind of, and maybe there is, and I just missed the Easter egg of like a painting with him in it or something.
There
that would have been funny.
That would have been
There
good.
should have been.
They do
You're
mention
right.
the pink
so
slime.
good.
They mentioned that.
Yeah, they have like the mood slime in there.
Mood slime, yeah.
But I'm just like, it was way too much. Well, that's okay. Case in point with the Easter eggs and the mood slime. In Afterlife, the third movie or whatever, you had nods and Easter eggs to the original and homages, but most of those I felt like still served the plot. They didn't feel like they were shoehorned in, and they do pay homage to the nostalgia. Almost all of the callbacks and things in this movie didn't feel like they were there to add to the plot. They were just there to, oh, you remember this? Oh, you remember that? Oh, you remember this? It's like, oh, it's cool. Like the joke at the end.
They pointed out too.
Yeah,
I think that's another thing. In the Afterlife, there's those Easter egg moments are not necessarily like pointed out. You have to catch them in the background, or you have to see them and know what they are. But they never really They never purposefully point out that this is from a previous...
Well, yeah, show, don't tell,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and it's sad because that's become a theme not only with... I mean, it's sad that it's now drifting into Easter eggs, which makes them not really Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Because they're supposed to be hidden or innuendo or suggested. But then you also have that coming through with plot. I mean, there's plenty of times or instances where they draw your attention clearly to what they're trying to do by telling you instead of showing you. And I can't stand that because... Go ahead, yeah.
No, I was just going to say, just like the payoff for Paul Rudd being the father figure was so stupid as they try to have that emotional moment.
She calls him dad, and other than just letting it go, or even I didn't mind the line where, the mom just, did you hear that?
Yeah.
And then like him just kind of like having a smirk or like being happy. No. He literally has to go, she called me dad.
Like twice.
And I'm just like, come on, we don't have to have it completely given to us. Don't spoon feed us.
Yeah.
Like, it just, again, it insults your intelligence, and sadly, this movie was just, it not only held your hand all the way through in terms of all of its plot points, but it just didn't have any kind of, amazing spectacle to go along with it. I mean, there was just nothing new it brought to the table. There was nothing that I thought was interesting enough to be like, oh, that was a cool little play on what they've introduced before.
It's funny, too, because you mentioned spectacle, and I'm like, out of all of the films, this one has the most spectacle with the Frozen Empire, yet it's not at all entertaining or interesting like something as
it's
simple
not unique.
as I mean, it's way cooler to have a ghost living in your refrigerator or eggs cooking on the table. Like, all of those things were spectacle, but they were so subtle and yet eerie and scary. This is just, it looked like The Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. It's what we see now in almost any movie that's just a big budget is just CGI fest. And I mean, I even think back to the original when the ghosts escape and there's this huge like, oh crap, now they're terrorizing the whole city.
Yeah.
The music that plays during that scene is
That's
so
awesome.
eerie,
Yeah.
and I love that scene.
Yeah.
And then you just see like starting to go to mass chaos, and you get a feel for this city being terrorized with all this, occult,
that's
feelings going on. But in this, you literally see them escape, no cause for concern other than people running off the beach because a big tidal wave of frozen, tundra is coming after them.
Nobody dies.
Nobody.
I'm sorry.
It doesn't. You don't get any impending doom
at all. It shows
the
city completely frozen and just dilapidated.
Yeah.
But there's
no casualties.
No casualties.
Nothing.
And again, I think part of like all the ghosts escaping, but them not addressing it is, again, because just like the aquarium, they're trying to build a larger franchises where they can have multiple films and movies. It's like, because even the freaking director and Jason Reitman in an interview talked about the scene of the little mini Stay Puft still in the semi, and they're like, oh yeah, we definitely think there's more story to tell there. They'll be back. Yeah. Well, people are assuming they're going to make like some type of short like like series for that.
A freaking Minions movie with Stay Puft Marshmallow
because they're
Man.
talking about doing not just sequels, but now it's like you can have like spin-offs.
Ghost
and
Core,
stuff.
yeah.
It's like
gonna have. There's probably gonna be animated.
And that
Wow.
so all the ghosts escaping all these years worth of ghosts, now they have years worth of material because they got to capture them all back up, and they have this new containment system that can last for lifetimes. So we have lifetimes worth of Ghostbusters movies we can make. But I did like the eerie part is what bugged me most because I said in the theater the movie didn't feel like Ghostbusters to me.
No.
And I realized after the fact that was part of it. Oh, there's a ton of reviews online talking about how this is like the darkest and scariest Ghostbusters. And I'm like,
quite the opposite.
It's not. I thought it was one of the tamest.
Yeah.
I was sitting there, I was like, I remember, like you said, like Gozer not Gozer in the fridge, but the thing that yells, like says Gozer when she opens up. You have the fire and the red light, and he says
Zool.
Zool. Yes, thank you, Zool.
It's one of the dogs saying it.
That scared the crap out of me as a kid.
Yes. Dude,
and
those dogs were terrifying.
Well, the couch scene in the first movie where the hands come out of the couch and grab her.
Yes.
And then, I mean, even in the second movie, you have the creepy painting, but then you have, what's his name? The little... The helper guy.
Oh, yeah.
Moranis.
No. The little dirty dude that works at the... Janos. Yeah,
Janos.
That works for
But he,
Vigo.
there's, he walks through the hallway at night, and his eyes light up like flashlights.
Yeah.
And he comes and steals the baby in a baby carriage. Like, I mean, that's creepy stuff.
Yep.
There's nothing like that in this movie.
The worst you get is the very beginning with the frozen guys in the room and, like, the hands detached, and I thought that was cool. And then after that, everything else is pretty tame.
Yeah, it is. It's nothing like the original at all.
And I missed that. I was like, this movie doesn't feel creepy or scary. That was something Afterlife succeeded at the very beginning of the movie when he's running like into the house and everything, and like the thing you see, like the thing kind of following.
Oh yeah,
he's trying to that was creepy.
It kills him.
Yeah.
I mean,
there was no scene in this movie that I felt like had that eerie, creepy touch of something being haunted.
Well, and nothing no impending doom at all. The characters always felt safe. They always felt even in the midst of when Phoebe gets in the machine and you think, there's a blackout or whatever, and it disrupts, and like now they can all escape. The worst you get is maybe the head coming out, but it immediately recedes back in. I'm like, the threat's immediately over. Like it didn't give it a chance to set in, and I didn't really feel threatened by the main baddie.
Well, no.
And even at the end of the movie, that's the only time you see this camaraderie moment with the city cheering them on. And I'm like, you clearly did this just for the sake of having a similarity to the.
It didn't feel earned. Like at the end of the first movie, when like the whole city's in chaos and they're coming through the crowd to save the day, everybody's down there waiting with bated breath to see if they accomplish their goal.
The whole movie is about how they're legitimate.
Yeah,
and everybody's treating them like they're just a waste of time. And how are they trying to be serious? And then this threat comes through that threatens everybody, and it's like, we need these guys.
So at the end of the first one, when they're all cheering them in the streets, it feels natural and earned. And in this, I'm just like, none of these people were anywhere near here, and then all of a sudden they just show up at the firehouse cheering them on.
It completely undermines undermines the whole premise of the film. The reason they're even supposed to be back in the city, it's like, well, they've been irrelevant and out of business for the last 10 years or whatever. Yeah. So the fact that he even brings them back, and now all of a sudden they either have a ghost problem, or there's these few spurious ones that are on the loose. It just never felt like the city had anything to gain by having them back. Yeah. And I'm like, for that to be the case, it almost was like, well, then why'd you even make this movie? Yeah. Well, there were just so many things that were haphazard and lackadaisically done.
Yep.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah, that was a good way to end it.
It's sad because I mean, we trounced on it, I think, a lot more than most people would think. But you still gave it 2 out of 4. It's not because it's not a terrible.
No,
I'll watch it again.
I probably will.
Not in theaters, but I mean when it's available to
I probably will
stream. I'll watch it again with the kids or something like that.
But it's
not a movie. Yeah,
I don't currently have a reason to watch it.
Right,
but. It's just one of those that for me, I'm like, it was just to me, it was like another movie made just to say, hey,
for the sake
this property's still around.
It felt like a cash grab. It's like, look, franchise, like we everybody needs a franchise. This is popular. I mean, it felt more like not as bad as current Marvel movies, but it felt more like a Marvel movie with that mindset of we're just making a fun like blockbuster action comedy romp, rather than actually making a Ghostbusters movie.
Yep.
And I mean,
and it's a shame just for that to be the case right after Afterlife. Which at least, because again. Sadly, but it had no effect. At the very end, they have the For Ivan, on there,
Yeah.
and it had it was just lackluster. I'm like, I don't feel anything for this.
Yeah.
You
No.
had it at the end of Afterlife.
Well, they said for Harold because Ivan hadn't.
It says for
sorry.
Harold on Afterlife.
Ivan
but-
hadn't passed yet with Afterlife, but he did afterwards. So
and it's sad because I'm like, I don't know if he would want this to be left in in memory of his legacy, unfortunately. But I would say yes, it's probably worth one watch if you're a Ghostbusters fan.
yeah.
If you don't really care, it's not a franchise that you're either looking forward to or it's been dormant, just go watch the original.
Yep.
It's way better.
I told Keith next door, I was like, to me, Afterlife was made because of a love for what they had created in the past and their dads and Harold Ramis. This movie was just made with dollar signs in their mind.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. There's no love for the franchise in this movie. And it really surprises me with Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson and Bill Murray being a part of it. The third movie felt like Dan Aykroyd, or at least some of them, had to have had some say in the story and in the way things were going to be displayed, in the way they were going to portray Egon and his legacy and all of that stuff. In this movie, I felt like they were completely left out. Because I just don't think they would have went along with this if...
Well, and it kind of kills the momentum when you consider like all of the articles that were addressing that before this movie was even made.
Yeah.
And even back when Afterlife, when it was coming out, and they've always said like, Bill Murray's not going to be on board unless he likes the script.
Yeah, he wouldn't sign off on any movies before now, yeah.
And I'm just like sitting here and I'm like, if that's the case, then I don't know who his agent is or if that was ever really true or just to drum up excitement to get people in seats.
I think at one time it was true. I think now, just like with him only being brief, I think now he's just like, well, since the focus, I'm not the main character anymore, I don't care to just come shoot a few scenes and go home because that's
say a couple of funny lines and then leave.
Yeah. And so it's sad because what people were hoping for and expecting to be a pillar of faith in, this is going to be a good movie because of that. No,
it's just tepid. It is, like you said. There are funny moments. I found Paul Rudd funny. I found Nanjiani funny, but I mean,
Patton Oswalt was not funny.
No,
it's like, why is he in this movie?
Yeah.
Again, he was only had one scene.
You didn't bring it up. You didn't bring it up. We were talking about it a little bit during the review, Keith, but you didn't bring up the Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah. Because they mentioned because you all actually were talking about during the review how you didn't like. Sean mentioned the after credit scene with her and Bill Murray in Afterlife, and she's not in this movie at all. She's not even mentioned. I don't think they reference her at all. And Gil Keenan, the director, they actually talked to him about both her and Rick Moranis because they're like, hey, everybody wanted like to see them in Afterlife, and of course Rick Moranis was the one that declined that. But it was like, how come they're not in this movie? And it's like, look, I love both characters. I would love them to come back in future movies. But he was like, they're just, the first movie Afterlife, we wanted them both to come back. But this movie, they're just with the story, there was no room for them in the story. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you crammed all these other characters like Patton Oswalt's
characters.
Yeah.
Though. That's the other thing.
Patton Oswalt's character served no purpose. I mean, he was plot drop, exposition.
Yeah. Exposition. No, that's what it was.
The other guy at the aquarium, the British guy.
Yeah,
he was no point. There's no
him.
point to that character at all.
There wasn't really any point to bring Podcast and Lucky back. I mean, I understand kind of why they did it, but at the same time, it's like they didn't serve a purpose in this movie other than they were like,
technically they're the new Ghostbusters.
But see, and that's the weird thing is for this to have been a handing of the torch. It felt like neither. It was like they didn't pass the torch on to the new generation, and also the ones being in it from the original, they just were kind of wasted. They weren't even needing to be there other than just to say, hey, we're still here and we're still... Because even in the movie, their whole purpose, like, there is no we're done with this, it's your all's chance now. It was more so, no, we're still in the game. Like, we'll still throw on our proton packs and go. Yeah. Like, we're still Ghostbusters.
But then at the end, like in the end of Afterlife, the original cast shows up and they actually contribute to defeating Gozer. Whereas at the end of this movie, it's like they all show up and come together, and within 30 seconds, they're pinned up against a wall, and it's up to the young female lead, basically, to save the day and leave all of the old guard pinned up against the wall, helpless.
Right.
And I'm like, they contribute absolutely nothing to the end of the film like they did in Afterlife.
And for them to also, as a band of, again, the old guard.
Yeah.
They only all come into play together at the very end.
Yeah.
And they're only on screen all together again for like the final climax, and that's it.
And for men who in the originals were like extremely intelligent scientists, even Murray, who cut up, was still a scientist.
Yep.
It's like they all, like when you watch the original movies, they again, like they don't get into great depth going into the science, but it's believable enough that it's like they know what they're talking about. They investigate the problem and the hauntings going on with Gozer or Vigo. They use the science they have, the knowledge of, to combat them. And it's like in this movie, it's like they're not complete morons, but like they don't ever try to problem solve in that way to stop
That's
this.
A really good point. I thought we were done with this, but seriously, in the first two movies, it's investigative ghost hunting.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, they have to figure out what the gatekeeper and keymaster are for, where they're going to show up or where they're going to end up, and they interview Rick Moranis with the thing on his head, and I mean, it's like, yeah, it was a Batman story. I mean, it was they were detectives, and in this movie, it's just
at the very end, the young female lead again, she just out of nowhere comes up with the idea of, well, this metal, is why it freezes, so if we use brass, it's like she immediately solves the problem with science that's pulled out of nowhere. Again, there's no build up to that.
No.
And it's just like, so we just pull a solution out.
That's funny. We've been talking about this for 30 minutes, and we've not mentioned the Fire Master at all.
And I was going to say, the fact that they even call it the Fire Master, direct rip-off of the Keymaster, I'm just like, really? You can't come up with something else?
A little bit more creative,
right.
And all he can do is bend fire a little bit. It's like, okay, you're the last airbender or firebender.
Right, and the only time he comes into play is literally at the very end.
Yeah.
And I mean, he fails ultimately.
Yeah.
It's like, what was his purpose?
Well, at the very end, he uses his fire along with her thing to help trap but I mean, they don't explain which one of them actually solves it.
Well, and again, and even that explanation is just kind of like, just because it needed to work.
Well, they didn't even get into like,
it doesn't make any sense.
I don't mind it. Like pyrokinesis is a thing, and you see like even Bill Murray like studying like the anger stuff in the first Ghostbusters. That stuff I was like, I'm okay. I can be on board with him having pyrokinesis to fight these ghosts. But again, it's nothing that's ever built up throughout the movie until they need it to exist.
Right.
It's just like, oh, well, all of a sudden you should be able to control fire. It's like, why?
Because of his ancestors. That was it. That was literally the only reason they gave.
Because fire fights ice. It's like, well, that you could elementary school.
You create you create an antagonist. You create a big bad, and you create one person that their sole purpose is to fight just that big bad.
Yeah.
Because they make it clear. It's not like they were like, oh, he's an ancient Ghostbuster, but he was only. Their people only hunted and contained this one kind of ghost.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so after this movie, that character is completely useless and pointless.
Yeah. Other than maybe getting out there and doing some cool,
and he was
maybe some, I don't know, Shang-Chi magic or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, he was mostly pointless in this movie.
Granted,
I did find him funny
Comedic
at times.
relief, that was
it. And that's the thing.
But we already had plenty of that.
Yeah, you already have a whole cast. Like literally, it's like it's a comedy.
That's what they were shooting for. It was a buddy cop comedy, and it was like, there's way too many cops. There's way too many.
Yeah.
It's way too. It's overloaded.
Generally, a buddy cop comedy has 2 cops.
That's it.
Not 10.
So, go watch the other guys. That's a buddy cop comedy. All righty, we have beat this dead horse.
Yeah.
But yes, if you are a Ghostbusters fan, go see it. If not, it's probably worth a pass, and maybe check it out on streaming if it drops. But all right, let's move into our headlines. Let's get into it. There we go. We ready to talk about some headlines?
We're talking about depression.
I think I'm going from the bottom to the top again.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yep.
Well,
screw me up.
You did, yeah, because I was ready
Started
to.
out from the bottom to the top. Now we here.
I was ready to make a joke about
the top, now we here.
depressed Hollywood.
We will. Well, that's our main topic.
I know.
I call it Hollywood depression, but I'm doing a little bit of a little play on words there.
Okay.
It's like,
Well, I mean, it's both.
it's both.
It's both.
But yeah,
I caught it. That's why I said I wanted to make the
Exactly.
joke about the depression.
but we're mainly starting out with just because I want to get this out of the way.
That's fair. That's fair.
I have to admit, because we often talk and boast about the times on this show when we've predicted things to happen and when we've foreseen certain things. I have on this show on multiple occasions, mainly because I'm hopeful that it would be the final year of the Golden Globes.
Well, we said that this year that it wouldn't be.
No, well, because of the ratings increase.
Yeah.
But in
and
years
the fact
past,
that they just started with CBS as
right,
well.
but in years past, I have always stated that they were on the cusp.
They were
getting very close, that this was probably it. They were doomed to be over after just this final year. No, come to find out, Golden Globes inked a 5-year deal with CBS, so the monstrosity continues.
I'm not surprised that it continues. I was a little shocked to see that it was like, I thought maybe like a 2-year deal or something. Like that CBS.
If I was them, I'd be playing it.
Yeah, year by year.
Year by year.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, the ratings went up. It was their first year on CBS. I felt sure it's like, yeah, CBS will bring them back next year. When I saw the article like 5 years, I was just like, well, I guess CBS is confident about something.
Well, and I mean, obviously, with a 50% viewer increase year over year, and NBC was already, they had a bad taste in their mouth from, I don't know why, their crappy performance from other years.
Yeah.
I also think it was kind of CBS's little jab at NBC of being like, everybody watched it on our network.
Yeah.
And I mean, it I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm just like, it'll be so funny if next year after they've made this deal, it just tanks. Because, again, there was all that hubbub around like the fact that they had Taylor Swift there because of her documentary.
Well, and Barbenheimer.
They have Barbenheimer, that cultural event, and it's like everybody wanted to see what that was going to, how they were going to fare and compete. So I just think it's funny that like if you just have a slate of movies that don't even scratch the surface in terms of popularity in the culture this year.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, if it tanks next year and they're stuck with it.
Yep. Well,
they're stuck with it.
They'll have Dune 2 next year, so that'll at least be one popular movie.
I mean, that's the thing that sticks out to people like us.
Yeah. I don't
know
that.
the normies who.
Dune 1 was nominated for Golden Globes and Oscars. I think this one will be too.
No, it will.
No, I'm just saying in terms of like entertainment value and popularity.
Yeah. It's not as huge as Barbenheimer. You're right.
No, it's not a Barbenheimer level event.
Yeah.
I mean, but also.
You got like scales.
You do.
Yeah,
You've got the Barbenheimer level event is
that's a once in a generation.
The next thing is an extinction level event. Like it's up there.
Even as much as we love Top Gun and it was nominated too, like it didn't quite hit the zeitgeist the same way as, because I think it was the combination of Barbenheimer that really launched that.
It was the polar opposites.
Yes.
It was the tour de force for women and also the intellectual tour de force for men. And yet both of those mixed, and we're like, well, let's make a date night out of it. And we're gonna enjoy it and embrace both.
It was a thing that like can't be created, like it just happened naturally, and I don't think there's not going to be an event like that.
Was that
again.
a play on the physics of Oppenheimer? I don't know. Fusion versus fission.
I don't know. I know. I love it because it's one movie's about a womanizer, and the other movie was only popular because of a man in the movie.
It was his name. His name was attached to the movie, and outright. It was his outright name.
But no, I'm saying you had the womanizer was Oppenheimer. And then you had Ken.
Ken
was the most popular part of Barbie movie.
Ryan Gosling is like everybody's favorite part of that movie.
Yep, that is true. That is very true. But I don't know. All I know is I don't really care about the Golden Globes. I don't know how it's going to perform. Yeah. I was just shocked to see that it is renewed for that much longer, especially after the whole rebrand that from the Hollywood Foreign Press to the Golden Globe Press Association.
Yeah,
or whatever
something
it's called.
like that.
They actually
nobody even knew they changed their name.
Yeah. No, we didn't know until the week after. And we were
it's like the host, whatever that guy's name was,
Ricky Gervais.
No.
This year.
Oh, I forgot his name.
He joked about that to change the name, and nobody knew about it. What's that dude's name?
Nobody remembers.
Nobody knows. He's a C-list stand-up comic.
He was terrible.
Yeah. And he was the one that as everybody, like, that's what is so funny. These people come to this event. They've known it's gotten bad press, so then they're all piss poor attitudes about it. He's at least trying to make them laugh, and then they're dogging him for basically being the host. And then he's like, "It ain't my jokes.
I didn't write these jokes.
I don't care." He's like, "I don't care."
He only accepted the gig. I think like a week before. Like literally, they couldn't find anybody to host, so he accepts the gig and goes on with pre-written jokes.
What does that tell you about the industry that they're not even willing to support that guy who's up there just to be like, "Hey, at least I'm trying to help him out," and they're like, "But you're helping out the devil. We hate this place."
But they're all in there rewarded.
Yes,
it's like, we hate this place, but we're going to sit here and get our trophies.
And it used to be that it was the laid back award ceremony where they could all get drunk and then throughout the night, and it's
cut
just
up a little bit.
Yeah.
Go home.
Ricky
and
Gervais
sex traffic
ended
children.
that.
He did. There you go.
Yeah.
That's really what happened. Ricky
That's
Gervais
how they
came
wrapped up
out,
the night.
called them all out, and now they haven't been happy with it since.
Yep. It's like he killed the goal because it couldn't be a relaxed event anymore. He came in and made fun of everybody, and they all got butthurt.
The funny thing is, though, they all laughed when he made fun of them.
A lot of them did.
Yeah.
Those are the ones in the back of the room.
Oh.
The ones in the front were just like, oh, it's
Scowling.
Can't
shameful.
believe he said
He's
that.
he's talking about us.
But no, anyways, we'll move on to our next headline.
Yeah.
And talk about movies.
Is this going to be the number 2?
Happy Gilmore
Yeah.
sequel incoming?
Yeah.
Is this happening?
According to Shooter McGavin, which has been the only source of this news, but still, he says Adam Sandler approached him with a rough draft or draft
Script,
of a script. Christopher McDonald,
draft,
the guy who played Shooter McGavin, obviously,
Right.
said he was approached by Adams with this script, and that he says it's a real thing. He's not just making it up. It's in the works.
This could go one of two ways. I mean,
It could.
here's the thing. I don't think you're going to... It's so weird because I still support Adam Sandler because no, the movies that he's put on Netflix are not the quality of what we remember as classic Adam Sandler. I mean, even
True.
the ridiculous one. I mean, I don't
The
include
Ridiculous Six.
Well, that's one of the Netflix ones.
Yeah.
I don't include like Little Nicky or Zohan in there.
Oh, hey, Zohan.
I know.
That's one of my favorites.
You defend it
I
like
freaking love that movie.
But to me, I'm like, Big Daddy was kind of the end. Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
You got Wedding Singer, Happy Gilmore,
Yeah,
Billy
Wedding Singer's
Madison.
Those are the heartwarming ones.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Big
yeah.
Daddy. I mean, even Waterboy. I mean, like you throw those in there, they had the Adam Sandler style humor, same level in all of those.
Yeah.
But they still had a like, oh, this is actually a funny story that goes along with it. And like you said, a little heartwarming in there.
Yeah.
But then he started to just stray into the ridiculous and stupid.
Yeah.
And he
overtly.
carried that into the Netflix realm. And every once in a while, like you'd get a Sandy Wexler where I didn't never finish it or watch it, but I know that people were expecting, oh, this is a return to like the kind of a little bit more, I don't want to say highbrow, but Spanglish type of Adam Sandler, or the Punch Drunk Love type of Adam Sandler.
That's a good one, yeah.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
But it's weird because the only good ones that he's really had, I mean, one that he produced that I really liked was the basketball one, and I forget the name of it.
That one was good.
That one was good, and I cannot remember the name of it. But then the Merowitz stories or Uncut Gems, which were movies he was in but didn't produce or direct.
Right. Yeah.
Like
You
almost
mean you didn't like Spaceman?
no. Which again, he didn't produce or direct that.
True. Yep.
But it's weird because his movies that he has released on Netflix, all of them have been hits. And because I'm a fan of his, I'm glad to see him still making things. But he's not done direct sequels. If anything, I can give him credit for, it's all the stuff he's produced for Netflix have been originals.
Yes.
They've been new things. And it's like, even if you hate them or you find one that's just quirky enough and you're like, oh, I like this one, or, oh, that one wasn't too bad, at least they were all just new content.
Yeah.
It was new stuff. Nobody else is pushing out that kind of crap in Hollywood nowadays. They're all piggybacking off other franchises like Ghostbusters or trying to turn it into a multiverse. So I've given him credit. So it's kind of weird that I'm like, I don't want to see him return to something that he was.
I'm skeptical, which I mean, any more of almost any sequel in Hollywood, I'm skeptical. And Hustle was the best
Hustle
movie.
is
back
great.
then.
It's a good movie.
I had the same. It's one of those things where I don't feel like Happy Gilmore needs a sequel. And it makes me nervous to go back to that when sometimes sequels don't live up to the original.
It's going to be for Carl.
Yeah. But at the same time,
I guarantee you it's going to say
for Carl.
For Carl.
I guarantei you.
Just like Ivan.
But at the same
And
time,
Harold.
I will say that because Adam Sandler hasn't done a sequel before, and because it's like I hope that maybe because he is revisiting this is something that he actually is passionate about and wants to do. But at the same time, because you don't know what type of quality you get from Sandler,
It's just
it's
such
very
an iconic movie.
Yes.
It's so embedded in the culture of that particular era, but also has lasted beyond that generation. I mean, same with like Billy Madison, like Doyle rules. I mean, it's like there's just so many one-liners from Happy Gilmore and I mean Shooter McGavin and that whole character. I mean, it's like. I love that he's playing it up and like he's joking around.
Well, what does he do? I mean, he'd be happy to have a movie
Well,
where Happy Gilmore
that's
do.
what I'm saying. Yeah.
He
He's
said
probably
as much.
begging for it. Yeah.
He said as much online. He was like, I'll he was like, as soon as Adam showed me, he's like, I told him, how long will it take? I need to know. Like he's so super swamped and busy. But I'm with you. Maybe because it's like a first time he's returning to a movie or a character, he, has a little bit more love for it.
Yeah. We don't know. I mean, until it, and for all we know, this might just be a fart in the wind. Like
a cash grab.
Christopher McDonald claims it exists, but we really don't know other than him. Like, I mean, I don't think he's lying, but at the same time,
it would be pretty reckless to say this if it wasn't true.
I mean, what could you even call? What would the tagline be? It can't be Happy Gilmore 2. It'd have to have something funny or cheeky by it. Like, what would you even call the sequel? Because the grandma's dead. She's the whole point of the first movie is him saving her house, and it's like she's not living there anymore. It'd be funny to see Ben Stiller come back and like take out retribution on him, and then somehow they fight it off on the golf course. I don't know. Bob Barker's dead. You can't have him come back.
No cameo.
It'd be funny
there.
if Drew Carey comes into it.
That would be funny.
That would be funny.
Yeah,
they tie in prices right that way. But yeah, I mean, like I just don't even know what the
Happy
story
Gilmore
would be.
Out of retirement.
That's how I feel. Yeah,
I mean, something stupid like that. I don't even know.
Because that sounds
Maybe
like a
he
straight
takes
to DVD or VHS movie back in the day.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm trying to think of some golf.
I know. Like,
Still swinging.
Happy Gilmore. Hole in one.
Yes.
Hole in two. Or something like that.
Balls and holes. It'd be something. Yeah, I don't even know.
All right.
That's it.
We'll find out.
What was Carl Weathers' name in that movie?
Chubbs.
Chubbs.
Yeah.
That should be Happy Gilmore. Legacy of Chubbs.
No, that's what it'll,
legacy.
That's what it'll say at the end.
Yeah.
It's for Chubbs. That's what it'll say.
Chubbs.
Or it would be funny if, like, I don't know, the alligators. They'd have to play it back.
Oh, man, they had enough of that gif when he passed. The alligator and Lincoln and him in the sky. So he's up there with Lincoln and that alligator that stole his hand.
Yep.
Gosh.
Yep.
Oh
man, yeah. And the fact that you can't even have him have a cameo. You can't make a cameo like he does in the movie after he dies.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that would be wrong. It would be so wrong. But yeah, I don't know. I'm skeptical, as I am with most things anymore, because they just don't seem to retain the same, original taste. I mean, there was a time where I thought, the original creators on board, they're going to be careful with this. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
And only recently has it just been remake and requel city for the last 5, 6, 7 years in Hollywood. I just don't have any faith anymore.
Well, apparently, I would say it is true because Dan Patrick interviewed Adam Sandler, and he did say he's working on a script for the sequel because he actually wants Dan Patrick to play himself in the movie. Like he said, "You're going to be in the movie." Like I don't know if that was just because they were interviewing.
It's a long running joke because originally it was like Keith Olbermann, and it better not be the same Keith Olbermann. I think it is. He was supposed to be in the first movie.
Yeah.
And he declined and didn't. So then Dan Patrick is in it as himself.
Yeah.
And then ever since then, he's been joking with him that he's going to be in another movie of his, and he's going to return as
well, because Dan Patrick says that he hates he wants to play a villain. He doesn't like playing himself. But Adam Sandler said, "No, you're going to be yourself."
Yeah. So I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I think Sandler's got the right spirits, and he can make some lighthearted, funny stuff about it. I mean, it's just, I don't know if his comedy is on the same level anymore, or if it is just going to be stupid fart jokes. And I mean, Hubie Halloween was okay, but
I didn't mind that one.
There's just been so many things that he has done that have been funny recently that I'm like, this is not near like your old stuff.
I have hope. I don't know. After watching the
latest we'll all
Fairly movie, I'm like, those at least one of those brothers has still got it.
Which one
like
was
the Ricky Stenicki?
Oh, the Nicky. Yep.
That is on the level of Dumb and Dumber and Stuck on You and Me, Myself, and Irene. Like it's just Peter.
What was the one that we watched over at Brian's? Was it the bowling one?
Oh, Kingpin.
Yeah,
Kingpin's great.
I think that was also the Fairley Brothers,
or at least one of. I think it was one of them.
Yeah. I know, like even the one show that we thought was funny with the drunks, Loudermilk.
Oh yeah, Loudermilk.
That's produced by Peter Fairley.
Yeah, no, Loudermilk was funny. So,
but yeah, it's like I think I watched that movie and I was just like, wow, that really, like, that felt like an old Farrelly Brothers movie.
Right.
Like it just felt
and I think
it had the good message, the moral message, and that heartwarming thing, but then it also had tasteful comedy, and it wasn't woke. It actually walked a line that I was like, oh wow,
it's kind of one of the, by
I'm like
today.
That's stuff they used to not joke about a couple of years ago. Now they're
And who knows? I mean, I think that's kind of the weird thing about this whole Happy Gilmore 2 sequel is I'm like, maybe they'll capture lightning in a bottle twice.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll be able to touch on so much of the magic the first one had because it's been so far removed, but also, maybe there's enough there that can be creatively, spark a new generation.
I'm
You can't.
still thinking of titles.
Titles, I know. Yeah. Hey, if you come up with a good one, blurt it out.
I was just like Happy Gilmore, Tournament in the Sky, and it's like he dies and goes and plays golf in heaven with Chubbs.
Oh gosh!
What
if they did it in Kentucky?
On
They
clouds.
just called it Happy Gilmore Valhalla.
And
it's got. Oh gosh! All right. We're moving on to our final headline of the night. That is full-scale Hollywood depression. Now, Keith, you were alluding to this.
I just
words.
think they deserve to be depressed in both ways. They're talking about a financial depression, but I mean, which is it's funny to me with all the strikes because they do mention like the possibility of even more strikes. All the strikes asking for more money and asking for all these stipulations, but they're not like their movies are failing. They're not making money to be able to pay out more money.
Yeah.
And now the mindset amongst all of Hollywood, I mean, not just Disney. I know Bob Iger keeps saying it the most, but all of Hollywood is kind of in this set of like, well, we're going to produce maybe a little less. We think we're overproducing things, which I would agree with. They are. So we're going to cut back on how much projects we make. So now there's less jobs in Hollywood. They're laying people off. And everybody's like, oh, we're not getting job opportunities. We're not getting paid. And it's like, well, what did you think was going to happen? I mean,
even what they've made after some of these strikes, after they're being paid more money and getting all the sweetheart deals that they wanted, they're still making trash. It's like, what are we paying you for?
Well, I thought that was actually kind of what was telling in the article when they mentioned how many shows they're even cutting down in terms of the cutback. They've dropped from was it 500 shows last year to now down to 430 something shows, which still is just baffling.
I was
I'm like, how in the world are you producing this many TV series for any kind of amount of audience?
Again,
I don't know who's consuming this.
It's content to have content because everybody's got to fill out all their services and all their channels. And I'm just like, I can't even think of I
can't fathom how many.
I can't even think of more than
hours
3 or 4 shows last year that I thought was even worth checking out, let alone 500.
And granted, look, there's something to be said about variety is the spice of life, and there's people out there who have their own, kind of the little caveat of I like this, I like that, their own genre that they are into. But just that amount of content is ridiculous. I mean, I know we've talked about it as a group of guys that actually enjoys gaming, and it's like there's plenty of times where I'm like, there's way too many of those coming out.
Yeah.
So you're not just competing against space in your own industry. It's other industries as well in the multimedia space. And so to hear them complain, or not complain, but talk about the contraction, which I think it's funny because just at the top of this article, that it'll be linked in the description below, it's from Deadline, and they have a whole series called Hollywood Contraction. And my apologies that this article actually came out last Monday, but because it's a part of a series, I thought it's relevant to bring up because this has been, I mean, we've been discussing it over the last couple months about all of the layoffs that have happened across the industry, and it's not shoring up anytime soon. And it's only now that it's hitting some of those top executives. And they mentioned in there, they were like, yeah, your major CEOs or your major presidents that are making, anywhere from, $10 to $12 million, they'll be probably cut down to 4 or 5, and they can handle that kind of cutback. But it's your other executives that are $400,000 or $500,000, and they have to drop down to $350. It's like they're willing to make that move to keep their job, and those jobs won't ever their salary won't increase.
Yeah,
that's why it's called a contraction. It's literally shrinking the value of the market, and also there are jobs that are being ousted and completely possibly going away. They denote that they speculate that it'll be about 20% of the loss, and only about 5% or 15% of those will come back.
Yeah.
In maybe the third or fourth quarter.
That's in VP and above executive positions.
Yeah. So it's like the C-suite is basically getting cleaned out.
Yeah.
And a lot of these companies. Well, and exactly. I was just saying, to go back to Sean's point, I mean, think about it. What have you done for me lately? What are you producing? You produce nothing but crap. Mm-hmm. And I love, too, that a lot of what they're staking this on are these unverified claims that it's because of COVID. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to that far. And I'm like,
so sick of that.
Yeah.
But
COVID.
Then it's funny because they draw reference to back in 2009, which was the last big recession that the film and TV industry took a hit. And they even brought up the fact that it was back then that during that time period, the salaries and whatnot getting restricted, or the layoffs that had happened, they were due to the fact that there were just people weren't consuming it.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, oh wait, but you're not gonna bring that argument into today's what's going on in today's climate.
They won't learn their. It's funny, you see these trends, but they refuse to learn the lesson. It's obvious right in front of them, but they want to say no because they want the power, they want the money. And
they never want to admit it's the content they're making that nobody's consuming.
They don't want to admit that they're the ones at fault. And that's why I'm okay with the higher-ups being the ones to either lose their jobs or lose money. It's like, I'm sorry, Bob Iger doesn't deserve all the money when he's running Disney into the ground. If they want to cut his salary by 50%, I say go for it, because what's he doing for you? Nothing. You're bleeding money. It's like, rather than kill off all the below-the-line workers and lose their jobs.
But see, that's what they're saying. They're not getting cut.
No, they aren't. That's what I'm saying. That's what aggravates me. It's like, why not have these? And I'm not one of those people that feel like people don't deserve the millions of dollars they end up making when they reach the top as a CEO or the leader of a business. Yeah, you have a lot on your plate. You deserve to make the most money. At the same time, if you're running a company into the ground, you no longer deserve that money.
Or the position.
No, or the position, yes.
Right. Which is that's exactly what we talked about last week's show, with regard to Peltz trying to oust Iger from the board and put
again. I'm for it.
Same. And it was funny because there was a development in that story, is that there were people who were saying they supported Iger, but their firm that apparently has voting shares was not putting their weight behind him in terms of votes, almost as if they were abstaining from voting, but. How is that going to shake out when it comes to a final tally?
Yeah.
If Iger has less support overall, does that mean that Peltz and his other partner get a position on the board and they can start, coming in and, staking their claim on changing Disney for the better? I mean, look, these are businesses, but this has always been that weird, murky area of the creative industry, is when you get into... I think that's kind of the weird thing that is a difference between now versus back during the recession in 2009, is that now you also have none of them want to lay claim to the blame that the strikes had last year, that they touted as being a once in a generation or 3 generations, because the last time both the WGA and the actors strike happened at the same time was back in the 70s?
70s, I think. Yeah.
So if that's the case, I'm like, but yet that's not to blame for all of the layoffs or the fact that you all were out of business for almost half a year and didn't produce anything, and now you don't have anything to show for it. Or maybe that's also why, because all of that was getting bankrolled, whether it was private investors or the fact that these companies were having to take it on the chin because they weren't producing content that should have been coming out this year.
Yeah.
They can't afford to keep you on payroll and not have anything to speak for it.
Yeah.
Never mind that it's also stuff that nobody wants to watch anyway.
If there's no income coming in, what are they going to pay you with?
Right. And the fact that they also bring up the mergers. There's plenty. I mean, they talk about the streaming race, and we hit that around its stride in 2020 with Disney Plus coming out, and now everybody was racing to get their own streaming service. And then you've had nothing but buyouts and mergers when you've got Warner Brothers Discovery, who's also looking for a potential buyer. You've got Paramount, who's wanting to merge even with them. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, is it just going to be Disney, Netflix, and Paramount, Warner Brothers Discovery? It's like, I mean, where is the room for all of these companies or all of these people who want to work in the industry if you don't even have that many people to work for? Because, again, you're already spread too thin. You're creating stuff that nobody is consuming. And I think that's the rude awakening for the industry that they don't want to admit or come to face with.
Yeah.
Is that, unfortunately, you're a luxury to a lot of people when times are hard. Yes, it's great that you can get out there and escape and have these wonderful TV shows and movies that you can enjoy and indulge in. But at the end of the day, if somebody's got to cut something from their budget, they're not keeping Netflix or Paramount or Warner Brothers or Max, whatever it is. They're not keeping these streaming services. Entertainment's the first thing to go. Mm-hmm. If you got to tighten your belt strap.
Yeah.
Sorry.
When your priorities are straight. Yeah.
Yes.
True.
I mean, there's people out there that would rather watch Netflix than eat. So I'm just saying, some people's priorities are all out of whack.
And
but
Netflix in that case is in trouble.
A smart person's going to cancel Netflix and feed their family.
Right.
Yeah.
And then their clientele's not dying off. So Netflix will be happy if you're doing that. But I think it's interesting that, again, this is the fruits of your labor. You can sit here and, you can go and call out strike and say you're fighting for the little guy, and it doesn't matter if that's what happens when the big guys are the only ones that actually can weather the storm and come back.
Yeah.
Nothing really changes because at the end of the day, you have a culture problem in general within that industry and a message problem because you're creating a lot of content that nobody's consuming. Nobody wants it.
I think it's one of the areas where, like, Apple is a streaming service, which, I mean, they do everything also, but besides streaming, but they've been very conservative with the amount of content that they put out on their streaming service. I mean, Apple has maybe 9 or 10 shows total that they're producing right now. There's other stuff you can watch on there, but it's like they've had a couple of films that have been highly rated, like Coda, yeah, and
even recently this year was Killers of the Flower Moon
and Napoleon.
Yeah. They did the Elvis movie too, didn't they? Wasn't that an Apple? I thought that was an Apple movie.
No, I don't think so.
Well, but their shows are all shows that people have continuously watched because they're good. Even the freaking one about the news staff.
Been one of the biggest.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest ones. Yeah, and some of them are fairly left leaning, and they're still extremely it's everybody watches it. Ted Lasso got very woke towards the end, but everybody still watched it. So it's they're picking and choosing what they're gonna put money into and what they're gonna keep. They're not just like oversaturating like Netflix does. Netflix has got so many shows that nobody watches, and they keep them. True. And Apple's been very picky, and there's like, nope, with this
and it's
show,
weird. I feel like Apple though is doing what they've typically done. It's like they entered the fray, but they just. It's funny because it's actually been one area where I think they've failed. That they do have a subscriber base, and granted, they haven't raised their prices, even though I think they did. I thought that didn't it go up to $10 now?
Mine's part of my Apple
One. And I would say a lot of their subscribers are probably because of that.
Yeah, the Apple One did go up in price.
Yes.
It's like
but
$30
it's
something
weird because
now.
I still think, I agree with you. The reason they're being more conservative with the shows that they put on their platform is because they know they don't have the subscriber base, and for them, they're thinking of long-term investment. Mm-hmm. They're thinking, okay, if we're in this for the long haul and we really want to be a competitor, then all we need are the every once in a while, even if it doesn't. I mean, because you think about it, they took it on the chin with Napoleon and Killers of the Flower Moon. You could sit here and say, oh, well, they're supporting art and they're supporting the greats. It's like, no, they wanted Ridley Scott and Martin Scorsese's name on their platform.
Yeah.
That's what they bought. And whether they were flops or not, and of course Ridley Scott and Martin Scorsese don't care because they're like, we made the movie we wanted to make. Mm-hmm. Apple's a great partner. Yeah. The same thing you hear from people who partner with Netflix, and Netflix is like, here's a blank check. We love your name. We know it's going to sell. I mean, this is the whole Adam Sandler saga. Yeah. They've made buku bucks because people subscribe, then watch his stuff. And they consider that a success. How you financially make that lucrative over the long haul, because over time it's like, yeah, but if people only watch it and then they bounce and then they don't come back. I mean, this is the I mean, everybody can talk about how Netflix is back in the plus side of things, but let's not forget they had to do the password crackdown.
Yeah, that's
in order to do that.
Yeah, I guess.
And it's just weird because I think with Apple, it's hard to tell at this point because they're so early in terms. They've got the bankroll. They know they can take the loss in terms of how much it keeps to operate the service for a long period of time, because ultimately movies and TV are not their bread and butter.
No.
It's their way of saying, we want to compete in this space, but we do not have a way in which we are going to be dominant yet until we get that killer IP, whether it be a movie or a TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got your Ted Lassos that are highly praised critically and culturally.
Yeah.
But then you also still have, I think, okay, you could literally binge watch that in a month with one subscription and then bounce.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with Apple right now is they don't have enough there to keep you. Like, you have it included with your subscription, but if Apple TV was all you had,
right? Yeah,
you wouldn't just subscribe for that.
No. I think I would do exactly like you said. I would watch the shows I want to watch, and then I would jump because you're paying monthly.
Means.
It's just, I think what I was getting at with Apple is even though they've only got a certain amount of shows, all of those shows have at least 4 seasons or more. They've pumped. They're Netflix will do 2 seasons of a show, and if it's not successful, they cancel it.
True,
Apple is continually, For All Mankind is not that popular of a show. It's on its 5th season.
Yeah.
C was not an extremely popular show. It had 4 seasons. Ted Lasso had 5 or 6.
I think it only had 3. Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso?
Yeah.
Really?
I'm pretty sure it only had 3.
Yeah.
3?
Yeah.
I thought it had 5. But
I'll look it up.
The morning show is continuously going. Foundation is going on its 2nd or 3rd or I think it's on its 3rd season, and they just even though the shows aren't like that popular, they're sticking with them. They're finishing the stories, and I guess that's what I like about their shows. They're like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna make it to the fullest. We're not gonna cancel it halfway through the season.
And I'm fine with that. If they're willing to see a creator's vision all the way through, and that again, if they're playing a long game and they're willing to let that be their MO, and that's why creators and whatnot sign up with them, is to say they actually let us do the stories we want and tell it the way we want. You know, the funny thing is I could see Apple being that lenient. And then once they get the silver bullet and it starts to explode, that's when they get a little bit more hands-on and, okay, now we're going to rein this in and do things the Apple way.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, they all do that to a certain extent. I mean, that's, again, the password crackdown with Netflix.
Yeah.
Whereas, 2-3 years ago, we had that tweet on Valentine's Day from Netflix saying love is sharing your password. Like, come on.
Not anymore.
No, not anymore. But it is interesting because the streaming wars, while they're still going on, have been proven to be all but, completely disastrous for the parent companies at hand, because they are still finding trouble monetizing it over the long term. Because how do you produce new content to keep people coming back, but also make it plentiful that they have? I mean, this was the whole argument that Netflix was going to be fighting an uphill battle, because all you have to have are people who are willing to take their content off your platform. And if you only have Netflix originals, I'm sorry, I don't think that's going to be enough for people to say this is worth the $20, $25 subscription.
That's the thing, is like, it's not worth the price tag.
Right.
Yep.
When it was $10 a month, if it was only Netflix
it was
originals, that was a deal. But yeah, the increases over increases, and that's the thing. It's never going to go back down. It's only going to go up.
And that's still eating away at Netflix, because for them to have series or movies from other, distributors or production houses, they're paying big dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because they'll pay, Warner Brothers, hey, we want this, and Warner Brothers is like, okay, but it's also going to be available on Max. We don't care.
Yeah.
And
more people have Netflix.
They're banking on that. Yeah. They're banking on people still coming to their platform and seeing that content there and watching it there before they subscribe to Max. But it's interesting because I definitely think the strikes from last year, the downturn of just the streaming competition in general, and it not being as lucrative as everybody was hoping it would be, with their specific service, in general. But then also, I think too, just the fact that the content, there's an overabundance of things competing for your attention, and people have seen a drop in quality. You've seen an increase in quantity and a drop in quality, and anytime that's the case, after a while, you get tired of junk food.
Yeah.
You get tired of eating it, and you don't want to eat it anymore. You want a steak. You want something good and delicious, and it's like,
unless you're vegetarian.
Well, and then you're gonna die anyway.
That's what Disney Plus is for.
Yeah.
There's no meat in any of those shows.
It's just broccoli. It's nothing but broccoli and asparagus.
Like, I don't even think that the Acolyte
Brussels
is
sprouts.
It's like they just like the Acolyte's like just pure like impossible meat, whatever, like just garbage. It's like,
it's the green St. Patrick's Day fake burger at Burger King.
It's a Boca burger.
Yeah.
I haven't even tried to watch it, and I'm not going to.
I don't think it's out yet. They've released the trailer.
I thought the first episode was out.
Is it? It might be. I don't know.
Well, people are already reviewing it, so how are they seeing it?
Well, those must be their critical reviewers. See, they're allowed. They're the select few that are allowed if they are. They're the ones that get up on Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes before the normies, so they can't review bomb it. But then you can have review praising it. You know, that's what they depend on. Yeah. All righty, we're going to move into our final segment of the night. That is our relationship segment.
Let me tell you about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and the moon up above. Anything called love.
Oh, don't you love that?
No, it doesn't come out till June. That's crazy. There, I mean, there's already people reviewing.
Did they have a sneak peek or something of it?
I don't know.
I don't know, because even Nerdrotic has got their thoughts on.
Oh, I didn't think he reviewed the trailer.
I think
I
think he was speaking on the trailer.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. He was
the trailer was hot garbage for him. Yeah. So
well, and that kind of makes sense because I mean, from the trailer, it did not look like a Star Wars.
Most people are just like, "What is this?"
It didn't. Yeah, it was kind of upsetting because I'm just like, "Really? This is what you all are cheering on as being?"
Well, and this is supposed to be kind of like the new era because this is like the Disney, like the.
Well, Acolyte was made by directed by the same lady or the same person that's directing the next Star Wars movie.
Well, I don't think she's doing a movie yet, but she is the director of Acolyte.
No, she's signed up. She's signed on to do the next movie with Rey.
I think that was what
the same lady.
Yeah, because
that lady was like an Indian lady. The Acolyte lady's like this blonde-haired woman with glasses.
Yeah, she's an LGBTQ person.
Yes, but they're two different women that have basically said the same exact thing.
I thought they hired her to do the next Star Wars film.
Pull it. Yeah, I can pull it up.
Let's confirm that because I thought it came out recently that was the big hubbub was that when she was talking about the Acolyte, but she was also signed on to direct the next.
She's the Acolyte director. The Star Wars lady looked like a Middle Eastern lady.
I don't think she's attached to it.
I don't think she's attached to it.
Oh, did they?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I may be mistaken on this, but we can clarify that if you can look that up.
If it's true, it's giving me social media anxiety right now.
I was gonna say
either way, no matter which project she's attached to, it's complete just garbage
wokeness. That's what Disney's infested. But you're right. Social media anxiety is our topic of discussion. How this affects our relationships with friends, with our spouses, with our children. How does it affect your day? We all talk about it. We're all on these devices all the time. We communicate to our friends and our family and our fans on these beautiful, wonderful technological devices. And yet, at the same time, it gives us anxiety. So let's talk about that. I'm trying to draw this out while Keith's looking at this. You are both researching it.
I'm looking. I just it might be something that has to wait for because I can't find anything.
I don't
see her connected to anything but Acolyte right now. From what I'm looking,
what I saw was on X.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was just on there and somebody got their information wrong. But it looked like
I've seen where they talk about her being hired as the next director of Star Wars, but that's literally like meaning like the Acolyte because that's what she's creating and
we can look it up after the show. Yeah. We can discuss it. We'll talk about it.
I don't really want to because I don't care that much. Like I really don't think it's that important.
Fair point. But let's talk about it. As anxious as we are to find out if this info is correct.
Yeah.
That other anxiety of when we get on there and we're doom scrolling. That's what the kids call it.
Yeah.
Doom scroll, looking for the bad news of the day.
That's all there is.
That's all it seems
that is all there ever is anymore. But that's also one, bad news sells. It's like nobody watches the news to hear about rainbows and puppies.
Right.
But two,
I would.
But two, again, like I mentioned in a text there a few days ago, it is to generate outrage. They want to generate outrage because that distracts from even more serious issues. So
and I think ultimately, and I say, I'd love to hear that, but it's funny because even when we talk on this show, it's like our headlines are obviously about something that's going to cause friction or what's going on in the industry. And typically you're not going to pick something that's just going to, every once in a while we'll share decent piece of news. I mean, even the Happy Gilmore stuff. It's that's I typically would be excited for that kind of news to break out. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, I'm intrigued. But then immediately I got into anxiousness because I'm like, oh, don't ruin the original. But no, I think this is a problem in general with our society and our culture at large. Is one, just not only that it's not even a 24-hour news cycle anymore, it's a 24-second news cycle.
Yes,
you just get in the middle of like scrolling, and it's just whether it's bad news after bad news or just one extreme after another in terms of any kind of topic of discussion. Again, the other cultural phrase that's tossed around by the youngins these days is go out and touch grass. And even that may be old now. Yeah. But it's like the idea is that, come back to reality. It's like, let's, again, this is Jordan Peterson's argument of, hey, before you go out and try to save the world with your solutions, why don't you make your bed first? Why don't you control directly what you actually have responsibility and control over in your own personal life before you go out and try to control somebody else's. Yeah. And I think far too often when you get into the social media world, whether it is something as macro level as X or Twitter, where it is on the super macro like news and information highway of just, it could be national news mixed in with like a little bit of local, but it's mostly stuff that's not involving you personally or directly. And then you look on Facebook where you may have your friend circles, and then you see they're amping up certain things that maybe you care or don't care about, and then all of a sudden now you're stuck on that as building up anxiety and stress because now you're taking something that is somewhat more direct to you because this is somebody this is a family member or a friend that you're seeing spout off about something on Facebook, and oh crap, all of a sudden, or I'm looking on Instagram and they just look like they're having the best time and the best life. Yeah. And what does my life amount to? Like, I don't know. It's just it's something that we do to ourselves.
It is. I mean, again, people post like the best versions of their life online anyways. Most people don't want to post that they're living in a cardboard box on the street. I mean, and if you're posting that, it's impressive.
How do they get a phone?
I believe that you could live in a tent and got an iPhone.
That's probably true. Our government will give you one.
Sadly, I've seen homeless people with phones. So,
Well, I mean, they got to call a drug dealer somehow.
That's right. Or they just hang around that store because they got free Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's it.
Yeah. And it's just it's one of those things where I think you do see those who are constantly posting like these highlights of their life, and it's easy to say, "Oh man, like what am I doing with my life? Look at them." When you also don't know the other aspects of their life and how they may not be fulfilled in other ways. Mm-hmm. But then as far as like I mean, I did it today. I was looking through some things on X, and there's just so much going on right now, like all at once right now with everything happening in the news. Mm-hmm. And that is part of why I say, some of it I think just feels like a distraction because there is so much going on, and then more stuff is happening on top of it.
Focus on one thing at a time.
And sometimes it does feel like are they doing this on purpose because they want to distract you from this? And I mean, not to get into conspiracy theories because I'm not really much of a conspiracy theorist, but it does give you pause to wonder, well, it's kind of strange that right after this serious news drops, this serious event just takes
and
place.
That's all anybody talks about for the rest of
the day,
the
month.
Yeah. Obviously, we're talking about a bridge collapse versus Diddy.
Yeah.
But I mean, two major stories.
Two of the major
drop
stories.
Within
24
hours.
There's been other things that
one
are,
literally dropped.
But it's just
oh gosh,
oh man. But it is soon? when you start going down those rabbit holes, and then you see where there isn't sound fact, where people get a hold of things on the internet and they conflate them, or they throw out baseless accusations.
That's where my anxiety comes from, is like reading the breaking news, and it's like, breaking news, Russia says it's about to nuke America, and I'm like, what the freak? Do I need to go get my kids from school and us die together? Like, what? And then you start reading the actual article that they link to it, and it's like, they didn't say that at all. They said, like, if it comes to that, we're ready. And I'm like, well, we would say the same thing.
Right.
We're not going to say, well, if it comes to that, we're going to cower out. Like, no. Everybody's got to puff up their chest. I'm like, that makes sense.
I think Biden would say, if it comes to that.
That's exactly. Yeah, like, if it comes to that, I'd get ice cream.
That was
I like ice cream.
That was a direct quote. That was a direct quote. But no, you're right.
He'd sniff Putin's
because
daughter.
Everybody
if he's got a daughter. I don't know.
He'd sniff
Does Putin have kids? I gotta find that out.
I don't think he does. I don't think he has a wife. He's probably got mistresses aplenty, but I don't think he has a wife.
He's got a secret heir somewhere.
He probably doesn't trust nobody.
That's true.
He's probably anybody he
a red
gets
sparrow
close to,
would kill him.
He kills him because he's just like, I've been around you too long. Bye. I don't trust you. I guarantee it.
He killed him.
I do think it is. You're a threat to my presidency.
That's right.
Yeah.
They drank poison.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I ultimately do think that while social media can be a good because it keeps you informed, I mean, the opposite end of that is that at least there are some things that, again, not to go down the conspiracy rabbit hole, you do have to be careful about, and vet properly what your sources are.
Yeah.
Especially in this day and age. But far be it.
Apparently, we were wrong about this hooker in Star Wars.
Yeah,
she's not directing a Star Wars movie that I could find.
Now, I did, and I didn't get a chance to look. I did see something that looked like a YouTube video saying that the one director was fired. I don't know if that's true, but that may be that she was fired.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So,
but not necessarily that this woman's taken over.
Yeah.
She's just doing the acolyte.
I
right
swear
now.
I saw something on X about it, but I don't know.
But it's weird because it's like, even though people want to say, well, it's never been this bad. Okay, maybe not on the scale. The scale has never been this crazy. But, I mean, there's been plenty of times in the past where whether you were a certified news out, I mean, there was no such thing as certified news. This whole idea of the Associated Press Journal of Ethics and blah, blah, that was created as a way to try to make the journalism sound more authentic.
Yep.
There's always been crooked journalists. Yeah. There's always been people who have been willing to spread false narratives or misinformation. And you could sit here and say, well, that's wrong. I mean, in the digital age, we should be able to rectify that. I'm like, no, you know how you rectify it? You allow the information to be out in the general public and you trust the general public. And you could say, well, that's a dangerous weapon to toy with. I far more trust my common man, the one that I am, that is going to be left behind in general. Because what does that really say about you as a culture and as a society if you're not willing to lay the trust at the hands of the people?
Yeah, the public are too. We have to protect them.
Right.
They're too stupid. We have to save them from themselves.
And it's like, and trust me, I'll be the first to admit there's plenty. I mean, I see them on the highway every day because I'm mad at them, and I'm one of those like angry, frustrated drivers, no doubt. But even as much as I may be pissed at them, I know I willingly do stuff wrong all the time too. I'm not perfect. And to me, to create a more perfect, imperfect world, you have to have that balance of the misinformation, disinformation even mixed in there. Now, granted, when you can tie it back to a specific foreign actor or when someone's trying to peddle certain influence into, the electorate to funnel in misinformation on a mass scale, then yeah, I absolutely understand why you may have to have people step in line and say, all right, this is a no-go. We can clearly see this is like an op. This is an op, a sysop. But
psyop.
A psyop. Sorry, yeah, a psyop.
A sysop would be a straight white male op.
Oh, there you go. You're true. That's bottom surgery or top surgery if we're talking in that term.
It's like, well, no, because that would be the opposite of a sysop because, then they're no longer cis.
What are we talking about?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If they're having an op and they're a
Mm-hmm.
cis, then they're clearly no longer cis.
Yeah.
It's a cis op to turn them trans. I don't know what we just created there.
But this is what social media anxiety leads to.
It does.
It leads to just
cis op.
at least that's not knowing what we're talking about.
It leads to. I mean, trust me. There's plenty of shows we end on where I think, what did we just put out in the ether? What did we just talk about?
Like, what did we just contribute to society?
That's right.
Nothing.
It's like we sit here and complain about Joe Biden's offhand comments, and we're then we come up with this.
Yeah.
We put more of that
Sysops.
garbage out there. That's right. But no, it's obviously, I think, healthy to meter it, to watch it, to be aware of it. I think there's definitely days where it's probably best to put the phone down.
Yeah.
Again, go touch some grass. Actually leave it be for, another day, another time. I'll be honest with you. It's kind of just been in general, just because Mondays are like my relaxed day, my day off. I mean, I still got a lot of responsibility to do around the house, chores, get ready for the week. I got to get ready for the show on Tuesdays. But usually, like, I don't have enough time to look at my phone. And then by the time I'm ready to relax, I don't even pick it up because I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna relax.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch some TV, whether it's Monday Night Raw, or I'm gonna actually play a game, watch a movie, something that I can tune out.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important nowadays with the amount of, because that's the other thing too, is as much as I think, we've had an increase in the levels of how much information and how rapidly it's spread, I don't necessarily think the falsehoods are paramount to, the truths that are out there. I think you can still, there's plenty of avenues to find the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's buried behind a lot of nonsense.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a lot of noise out there. Intentionally.
Yeah.
But even still, I think so much of it too is to realize how much little you can affect that and how much it affects you. And for you to be able to put it down, detach yourself from it and say, look, it's not good to consume this day in and day out 24/7. It's good to walk away from it, worry about your own sphere of influence, your family, your friends that you're attached to, and say, all right, I'm going to focus on them right now. They deserve my attention and my effort, and I'm gonna pay close mind to them. That's the best way, I think, to handle that anxiety and that stress.
Wow.
That was Dr. Phil coming out.
That was deep.
That was deep.
I wouldn't trust Dr. Phil to give that kind of advice anymore.
No.
That was Mr. Rogers.
There you go.
He's dead.
Or maybe even Dr. Seuss. I'd chalk it up to some Dr. Seuss in there. He's got some timeless classic lines. I'm telling you, go back and read some of his stuff.
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah, but he's still a little bit of a lefty. He was all about the environment and such.
So you can be a good steward and still
That's true.
Care about the environment, but also be a good moral person.
That's right.
Yeah.
You don't sacrifice the morality of human beings for the sake of the environment. You don't do that.
That's right.
No,
yeah.
but you still
kill
be
the
good.
babies.
He still
save
had
the
some
trees.
leftist stances.
He probably did.
Yeah.
But there's still some good messages.
Oh no, you're right. There are.
There are. I'd rather them read Dr. Seuss than a lot of the other.
Oh no, yeah,
Dr.
yeah.
Ruth.
Oh, what was that? I forget. There was recently. What I was going to name one of those books.
One of those books.
The trans books. They're transing the kids with.
Oh God. The ones that were burning.
The sysop
we
books.
should be burning.
The sysop.
All the sysop books out there, man.
Yeah. Oh man, I forget. There's one that they bring up all the time. It's got I don't want to say it on here. It's very explicit.
It has sexual poses
In the title?
No.
The book
in the
has
book.
like actual sex.
You're talking about the ones-
Gender queer is one of them. There's another one too that's
There's one that tells boys how to have sex and how to prepare for that and all of that stuff.
Yeah. It's that kind of stuff that I'm just like, I'd rather them read Dr.
Cat in the
Seuss.
Hat's much better.
Yeah. I'll go with green eggs and ham any day of the week.
Yeah,
all right?
That's what it's called.
Oh!
It's called green eggs and ham.
They really did a number on that one.
Yeah.
They rewrote
You know, the
that.
green eggs are and the ham is
Oh
the
gosh, don't go there.
Mhm.
Don't taint it. Don't taint.
that word's in there too.
I was gonna say. Bad choice of words. Alrighty, guys, that's gonna do it for this episode of the Red Moon Podcast.
Yeah.
As always, you can like, share, subscribe on all of your favorite social media networks at the bottom of your screen. Red Moon Book on Facebook, Red Moon Tweet on X, Red Moon Pics on Instagram, and of course, search for Red Moon Productions on YouTube and Rumble. We're on both. Like, share, subscribe. We appreciate it.
It's making me anxious. All of that social media.
Just so
It's
much.
just too much.
Too much out there, but never enough Red Moon.
Right.
Never too much Red Moon.
Right.
Because there is that old-fashioned way of reaching out to us, Keith.
RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
Just beautiful.
Is that a website
Fantastic.
or an email address or what is that?
I think it's email.
That's an email.
I think it's email.
Okay.
That's not my. I just lay out the address. He's supposed to go do that part.
Yeah.
I just saw Edie going over there as soon as you said
She
it.
knows.
Yeah,
She knows the email. She
Yeah.
never writes
I think
in.
she knows that tone.
Yeah, she heard me.
voice.
She was like, "Oh,
She's like, oh, that means it's over.
It's time. We're done. Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I think next week it's Kong, even though it's...
Kong."
Happy
Godzilla
Easter.
Kong?
He is risen. He is risen indeed. Hallelujah. That's right. Easter
It's coming
Sunday's
up.
next
Yeah,
Sunday.
this Sunday.
Yeah.
So we'll see y'all after Easter. Just wanted to get that out there because it's Holy Week.
Yeah, it'll be. Well, when we return, it'll be after Easter.
It'll be
so,
after.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right. But blessed Holy Week, everybody out there from the Red Moon Podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
And
Oh, there it is.
you're going to say it. Not even for Jesus.
for Jesus.
Well, now you're going to shame me.
Too late.
All right. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.